You will sit at tables where the laughter is loud, but the love is shallow. You will walk through storms thinking someone's holding your hand, only to find your palm grasping air. Loyalty is one of those words we've been taught to believe is sacred, something that just exists between people if the bond is strong enough, if the love is real enough, if the friendship is deep enough. But that's the lie. Loyalty is not always a gift. It is often a loan, and most people come collecting interest the moment you falter. You see, people will ride for you as long as the road is smooth. But let the path get rough. Let life shake you sideways. And many of those riders will pull over. They'll leave you mid-journey with the same ease they once praised you. And the worst part? They'll convince themselves they had good reasons to go. That's because most loyalty isn't given freely. It's a silent transaction. You provide the laughter, the support, the presence, the convenience, and in return, they offer loyalty. But when your pain demands more than your performance, that loan gets revoked. Most people are loyal to their needs, not to you. They're loyal to the version of you that benefits them, the one that says yes, the one that entertains, the one that validates, the one that makes their own reflection feel shinier just by being around. But the moment you start setting boundaries, the moment you need something instead of giving it, their loyalty fades like mist at dawn. They disappear not because they hate you, but because you're no longer a profitable investment. And still you wonder what went wrong. You replay moments, question your worth, punish yourself for not being enough to make them stay. But here's what they didn't tell you. You were never meant to earn what they were only pretending to give. It's not your fault they couldn't love you past convenience. It's not your fault they measured their presence against your performance. Their exit is not a reflection of your value. It's a revelation of their capacity. Some people can only handle the sunlit version of you, the happy you, the helpful you, the version that never needs but only gives. But when your sky turns gray, their loyalty evaporates like it was never real. And maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just borrowed belief, borrowed until the day you stop serving their script. There's a quiet pain in realizing someone you trusted saw you as a tool rather than a person. They clapped loudest when you were doing well, but went mute when you cried behind closed doors. They took up space in your life, but went missing from your soul. They made you think loyalty was about proximity, about showing up at parties or posting birthday stories. But loyalty isn't in the applause when you're winning. It's in the whispers when you're not. It's in the unseen moments when someone chooses to show up, not for the photo, not for the praise, but because they simply can't imagine letting you fall alone. You might feel betrayed, yes, you might feel hollow, but you must understand their departure is not a loss, it's a lesson. Loyalty tested in your pain reveals truth. Not everyone is meant to go the distance with you. Some were only ever passengers. They came with you, but they weren't for you. And you've got to know the difference, because thinking they were your people will keep you locked in confusion. Believing they were built for your depth will keep you questioning yourself every time someone leaves. But when you see loyalty for what it is, a loan, a temporary agreement, a conditional allegiance, you stop confusing company with commitment. This doesn't mean you should walk in the world cold. It doesn't mean push everyone away, but it does mean you must stop handing your heart to those who see it as a temporary shelter. Stop placing permanent trust in people with part-time loyalty. Watch what they do when you're no longer useful. Watch who stays when you have nothing to offer but your raw, unfiltered truth. And when you see the truth, don't beg them to change. Don't plead for their return. Don't explain your worth. Just be still. Let them leave if they must. Let their loyalty collapse under the weight of your authenticity, because the right people don't make you earn loyalty by sacrificing yourself. The right people offer it without receipt, without scorekeeping, without debt. Real loyalty doesn't expire when you're no longer entertaining. It grows deeper when you're broken. It shows up uninvited when everyone else walks out. And when you find it, real, unconditional loyalty, you'll know, because it won't feel like alone. It will feel like home. Silence is not always absence. Sometimes it's an answer. Sometimes it's the loudest revelation of someone's true intentions. You've seen it before. You're surrounded by smiles, applause, compliments that sound sweet but feel hollow. The people around you cheer when you rise, but when you fall, they vanish. Not with malice, not with warning, just quiet disappearance. And that silence, it tells you everything their words never did. You must learn to listen to what's not being said, because some people are skilled at performing loyalty. They show up in public but disappear in private. They know the right things to say, the right gestures to make, but when your world starts unraveling, their voice fades. They don't ask, "Are you okay?" They don't call when you go silent. They don't notice the shift in your tone, the break in your spirit. They just go quiet themselves, and that quiet is not innocent. It's revealing. There is a kind of silence that's crueler than betrayal, because at least betrayal shows its face. Silence just leaves you in the dark, wondering what you did wrong, replaying every conversation, every moment, trying to make sense of an absence that never gave you closure. But the truth is, you didn't do anything. Their silence isn't always about you. It's about their capacity, their limits, their discomfort with depth. They loved you on the surface, but your pain asked for depth. And they weren't willing to go there. People wear smiles like armor. They laugh with you when life is light, and they vanish when the weight comes. You'll be in rooms filled with people who adore your glow but ignore your grief. You'll look around in your darkest hour and realize those smiles were conditional. They weren't friendships, they were performances, acts of connection that required no real cost. Because real presence isn't proven when everything's going right. It's proven when everything's falling apart. When you hurt, listen closely, not to the noise, but to the absence of it. Who went quiet when you needed them? Who responded with excuses instead of empathy? Who offered surface-level check-ins but disappeared when it came time to sit in the mess with you? These are the people whose loyalty lived in their convenience, not in your connection. They smiled, yes, but their silence told you who they really were. And sometimes the silence doesn't come after a fall, it comes after a truth. You finally say how you feel. You finally express the pain you've been hiding. You finally ask for something, and instead of support, you're met with silence. Why? Because your vulnerability required more than their comfort zone could handle. You crossed into a territory that wasn't scripted for them, and instead of walking with you through it, they exited quietly, hoping you'd never bring it up again. It hurts, I know. You want to believe the people smiling with you are also the ones who would sit beside you in your silence, but many won't, many can't. Their affection was built on ease, not endurance, and when life demands endurance, they simply retreat. Don't chase after those who go silent when you're suffering. Don't beg for their voice when yours is breaking. Their silence is the answer. It is not a void, it is a verdict. And it's better to see the truth clearly than to live under the illusion of false support. You will begin to understand that not everyone around you is for you. Not everyone clapping is committed. Not everyone present is protective. And you will stop measuring friendship by shared smiles and start measuring it by shared struggles, because it's in your silence that you'll find your real people, the ones who lean in when everyone else leans away, the ones who don't need a reason to check on you, the ones who don't perform care, they practice it. They don't disappear when things get uncomfortable, they draw closer. When you speak your truth and someone goes silent, understand that they were never ready to hold your reality. When you're in pain and someone fades away, believe them the first time. Don't reinterpret silence to protect your illusions. Let silence teach you. Let it show you who is who. Because people can lie with their words, but their silence always tells the truth. And once you start trusting what silence reveals, you'll stop falling for the performance of connection. You'll stop settling for people who disappear when the mood shifts. You'll stop handing your wounds to those who flinch at the sight of them, and you'll begin to honor your own presence more than their absence. Smiles may soothe, but silence exposes. Learn to listen to what's not said. Learn to trust the quiet more than the compliments, because the ones who stand with you in your silence, without asking you to be anything other than what you are, those are the ones who never needed a spotlight to love you. There comes a time in life when you must face the storm alone, not because no one cares, but because no one else can truly carry what belongs to you. You are your own shelter in the storm, and the sooner you understand that, the stronger your steps become. People will walk beside you when the skies are blue, when your laughter is loud, when you're handing out warmth like the sun. But when the clouds gather and the winds of life threaten to tear you apart, most will look for cover. They'll wish you well from a distance. They'll pray for you in silence, but they won't stand in the storm with you, not because they're cruel, but because they were never built to withstand your weather. Pain has a way of stripping away the unnecessary. It reveals who can hold space for your storms and who can only handle your sunshine. And when you look around and realize the hands you reached for are no longer there, don't crumble. Don't curse the emptiness. Claim it. Because in that silence, in that solitude, is where you meet your own power. We're taught to depend on others, taught to find comfort in someone else's arms, answers in someone else's words. We're told that love, friendship, community will carry us through. And yes, sometimes it does. But there will be moments when no one picks up the phone, moments when your cries echo back to you, moments when your soul is shivering and there is no blanket but your own resolve. In those moments, you don't need pity, you need presence. And that presence must come from you. Being your own shelter doesn't mean you don't need anyone. It means you stop waiting for someone to rescue you from yourself. It means you stand with your back against the wall and say, if I fall, I'll rise again. Not because someone lifted me, but because I found the strength to lift myself. It means you stop outsourcing your healing. You stop expecting others to understand storms they've never weathered. You stop offering your pain to those who are only equipped to applaud your strength. There's power in becoming your own shelter. It's a quiet, grounded power, not loud or boastful, but steady. It shows up when you wipe your own tears and whisper, keep going. It shows up when the world turns cold and you wrap your own arms around your broken spirit. It shows up when you realize you are the love you've been waiting for, not in pieces, but in full. People will often love you for what you give, for how you make them feel, for how easy you are to lean on. But the minute you break, the minute you stop performing strength, you'll see who stays and who is simply taking comfort from your fire. And when that happens, let it. Let the storm clear the space. Let it tear down every false attachment, every illusion of support. Because when the dust settles, what remains is real. And what's real is what you build from. You are your own shelter, not because you don't need love, but because your love for yourself must be the foundation. If you keep relying on others to save you, you'll keep drowning every time they walk away. If you keep seeking peace in someone else's presence, you'll remain shattered when they're gone. Build your own shelter, brick by brick. Build it from your lessons, your failures, your strength, your tears. Build it so well that when the next storm comes, you don't panic, you breathe, you don't shatter, you bend. Being your own shelter also means being your own witness, not needing someone to validate your struggle before you believe in its depth. It means honoring your pain even when no one claps for your survival. It means tending to your wounds even when no one sees you bleeding. Because the most sacred healing happens away from the spotlight. It happens in the quiet, in the stillness. in the moments when you choose not to give up, even when no one is watching. There's a strange kind of freedom in knowing that you can survive without the approval, protection, or presence of anyone else. It doesn't make you hard, it makes you whole. Because from that place, you begin to choose people not from desperation, but from discernment. You begin to see love not as a crutch, but as a complement to the strength you've already built. And when someone chooses to walk with you, you won't lean on them to keep standing. You'll walk side by side. So when the rain falls and the sky darkens, don't search frantically for someone else to hold the umbrella. Be the shelter. Be the one who says, "This storm will not end me." Stand in the thunder and let it teach you your name. Because when you become your own shelter, no storm, no betrayal, no loss, no silence can unhouse your peace again. Friendship at its best is a sacred space, a place where you're safe to be seen, heard, and held without performance. But when that space lacks boundaries, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes dependency, not connection. It becomes a transaction wrapped in the disguise of closeness. And the truth is, many of us confuse the two. We think we're building deep bonds when really we're building cages, ones we lock ourselves inside of in the name of love. You might tell yourself it's loyalty. You might call it being there for someone. But look again, are you really supporting them, or are you surrendering yourself to keep them close? Are you offering care, or are you erasing yourself to avoid being alone? Too often we mistake access for intimacy. We allow people unlimited entry into our time, our emotions, our energy, all because we fear what distance might cost us. But what does closeness matter if it empties you? A friendship without boundaries will slowly begin to eat away at your sense of self. You'll find yourself saying yes when your heart is screaming no. You'll show up exhausted, listen to their stories while yours remain buried. You'll give them the benefit of the doubt long after they've shown you who they are, all because you've convinced yourself that closeness equals love. But closeness without clarity is chaos. And any relationship that demands your silence, your self-abandonment, or your constant sacrifice is not connection. It's codependency. It's easy to become entangled in someone else's emotional needs, especially when you care. But caring doesn't mean carrying everything for them. You are not responsible for healing others at the cost of your own well-being. You are not required to absorb someone's pain just to prove your loyalty. That is not friendship. That is martyrdom. And no relationship should require your destruction. Boundaries aren't walls. They're doors with locks that you control. They say, I love you, but I also love myself. They say, you're important, but I will not pour from an empty cup. A friendship without boundaries becomes a space where resentment grows silently, where one person gives endlessly and the other forgets to ask how much it's costing. And when you finally collapse, when you finally set that overdue limit, they call you distant, cold, changed. But it's not change, it's clarity. You just finally realize that real love respects limits, that the people who care for you don't punish your boundaries, they honor them. Some people will only love you if you remain small, available, and convenient. The moment you start protecting your energy, you'll see who was committed to you and who was committed to their access to you. This is where the illusion shatters. The friend who only called when they needed something, the one who disappeared when you needed them, the one who never asked about your pain but always expected you to hold theirs. These aren't friends. These are emotional squatters, living in your space without paying rent, draining you under the label of connection. But when you begin to draw boundaries, you make space for something real. You make space for friendships that feel like rest, not labor. You find people who don't flinch when you say, I can't today, who don't need you to be their savior to feel secure, Who see you as whole, not as a resource. Those are the relationships where growth happens, where love is rooted, not rented, where you can show up as your full self, not just the version that's useful. It takes courage to set a boundary with someone you care about. It feels like risking the relationship. But the truth is, if the relationship can't survive a boundary, it was never safe to begin with. Love that demands your exhaustion isn't love, it's control. And closeness that punishes your needs isn't closeness, it's consumption. Ask yourself, are you shrinking in your friendships? Are you afraid to speak your truth because you fear being left? Are you always the giver, always the listener, always the fixer? And if so, what have you been taught that made you believe that's love? You deserve friendships where mutuality exists, where giving and receiving are balanced, where both of you can say no without fear and yes without obligation, where time apart doesn't threaten the bond, and where your growth isn't seen as betrayal. Dependency feels like devotion until you try to breathe. That's when you realize you were never really free. But you can choose again. You can redefine friendship. You can teach people how to treat you. Not through anger, not through silence, but through honest, consistent boundaries, because in the end, love without limits will never last. But love with boundaries, that's the kind that endures, that's the kind that strengthens, that's the kind that lets you keep your soul while sharing your life. Presence can be deceiving. Someone can sit right next to you, hear every word you speak, smile at all the right times, and still not protect you, still not stand for you, still not hold your pain as sacred. We live in a world where presence is often mistaken for care, and that mistake has left many of us wide open, unprotected, unseen, and confused by the gap between who stayed and who actually showed up for real. You've probably felt it, that emptiness, even in a crowded room, that ache when the people you trust are near, but their energy isn't with you. They hear your voice, but they're not listening. They know your story, but they're not holding it. They see your struggle, but they don't respond. That's when you learn. Presence isn't always participation, and proximity isn't always protection. There are people who will stand in your photos, share your celebrations, and laugh at your jokes. People who appear loyal, appear committed. But the moment you are no longer convenient, the moment your truth requires effort, they disappear emotionally, if not physically. They stay in the picture, but they leave the frame of your life where it really matters. And you begin to realize not everyone who stays stands for you. Some people are there for the good moments, not because they love you deeply, but because your light makes them feel warm. They orbit your life like moths around a flame, not to guard it, but to bask in it. But when the flame flickers, when life gets cold, they retreat. That's when you discover who is truly protective. Not in words, not in routine presence, but in action, in choice, in sacrifice. Because protection isn't about being around, it's about being accountable. It's about who steps between you and harm, not who simply watches the harm happen and offers sympathy afterward. Too many of us give our trust to people who were only ever tourists in our lives. They came to visit, took in the sights, maybe stayed a while, but they were never planning to build with us, never meant to fight for us. And when chaos came, they grabbed their bags and left. Their presence was never about protection. It was about participation in the parts of you that felt good to them. And that's a hard truth to swallow, but it's also the most freeing one. You start to look at relationships differently. You stop saying, now they were there for me, and start asking, did they protect me when it counted? Because the ones who truly love you don't wait for you to scream for help. They notice, they intervene, they hold the line when you're too tired to hold it yourself, and they don't need applause for it. They don't need credit. They just show up fully. Protection looks like silence when someone tries to speak against you, and your friend says, not here. It looks like correction, not compliance, when they see you drifting off course. It looks like presence when it's inconvenient, support when it costs them something, and love that doesn't just comfort you, but covers you. But some of us are so starved for presence that we accept its shallow version. We convince ourselves that someone being there is enough, even when their presence brings no peace, no shelter, no advocacy. We stop expecting protection and we begin settling for access. And in doing so, we teach ourselves to tolerate danger dressed as companionship. It's not your job to be grateful for people who stay if they don't stand for your safety. It's not your responsibility to keep toxic proximity just because you share a history. You can love someone and still acknowledge that they never protected you when it mattered. You can forgive someone and still refuse to give them access to the parts of you they left unguarded. And let's be clear, protection is not control. It's not someone dictating your choices or acting superior. It's someone making you feel safer in a world that constantly tries to unravel you. It's someone who says, I see you falling and I won't let you fall alone. It's someone who defends your name in rooms you're not in and protects your heart in moments you can't speak for it yourself. You deserve that kind of love, the kind that is more than decorative presence, the kind that is more than smiles and small talk. You deserve people who act when you are vulnerable, who protect when others would exploit, who stand up when it would be easier to walk away. And when you find those people, don't take them for granted. And more importantly, be that kind of person for yourself. Protect your own peace. Speak your own truth. Hold your own heart with tenderness. Because sometimes the presence you need most isn't someone else showing up. It's you standing fully for yourself when no one else knows how. There is a kind of liberation that only comes when you stop expecting people to be what they've never been capable of. When you finally stop holding space for illusions, the truth sets you free, even if it stings first. No one is your friend, not in the permanent, unquestionable, unconditional way we're taught to believe friendship should be. And while that may sound harsh, it is the beginning of your true freedom. From an early age, we're sold this fantasy that there will be people who walk with us, no matter what, that someone will always have our back, that friendship is this unbreakable bond stronger than betrayal, misunderstanding, time, or distance. But life has a way of teaching you differently. You begin to see that people love the version of you that fits their life, the version that's easy, agreeable, uplifting. When you become hard to understand, when your healing makes you distant, when your standards become inconvenient, they don't say it outright, but they shift. Slowly, silently, they pull back. It's not because you failed them. It's because they were never rooted. Their presence depended on who you were for them, not who you are in truth. And once you stop being useful, once you stop playing the role they cast you in, the friendship fades, not loudly, not violently, but in a quiet neglect that tells you everything. No one is your friend, not in the way you imagined. But that doesn't mean you're unloved. It just means the love you thought was permanent was actually situational. And that's okay, because once you let go of the need to be someone's constant, someone's emotional caretaker, someone's unshakable support system just to be accepted, you reclaim your power. When you accept that no one owes you loyalty in exchange for your kindness, your giving, your presence, you begin to give without chains. You begin to detach your worth from their reaction. You begin to see your peace as something internal, not a product of how others treat you. People come and go. It's not a flaw in you. It's the rhythm of life. Some were meant to be chapters, not lifetimes. Some loved you in their way with the emotional tools they had, but that doesn't mean they were ever equipped to walk beside you through fire. When you accept this, you stop handing people keys to doors they never asked to enter. You stop hoping they'll read your silence as a cry for help. You stop giving your soul away just to be kept. The truth is, when you stop calling everyone a friend, you start making room for discernment. You stop letting people get close just because they were there during the good times. You start asking, who sees me? Who respects my boundaries? Who still shows up when I'm not easy to love? Those are the people you build with, not because they promised forever, but because they prove it quietly over time. This isn't about becoming cold or closed off. It's about becoming wise. Protecting your spirit is not selfish. It's necessary. Because when you move through life believing everyone who smiles with you is safe, you end up bleeding in places no one even noticed you were cut. And when you realize that even the closest people can disappoint you, you stop placing your survival in their hands. It's in that moment, when you no longer need to be chosen to feel valid, that you become free. Free from performance, free from people-pleasing, free from shrinking yourself just to keep a seat at tables that were never yours. You learn to sit with yourself, to comfort your own soul, to laugh alone, to celebrate without an audience. And in that stillness, you find something greater than friendship. You find self-possession. Because if no one is your friend in the way you were taught to expect, then no one can truly betray you in the way you feared. Disappointment loses its power. You don't get destroyed by distance. You don't unravel because someone left. You've built your foundation so firmly within that loss becomes part of the process, not the end of your peace. And when someone does choose you, not for what you provide, not for how you make them feel, but for who you truly are, you'll recognize it. Not because they say all the right things, but because they don't disappear when you're no longer shining. They're consistent, even when it's not convenient. They respect your solitude, not as a threat, but as a strength. And even then, you won't cling. You'll appreciate them, but you'll remain rooted in yourself. Because now you know the truth. No one is your friend, and that's your freedom. You belong to yourself first. And once you realize that, no loss can undo you. No silence can break you. No betrayal can define you. You walk lighter, freer, clearer, not because you have no one, but because you finally have you. You may walk away from this speech feeling heavier at first. Truth has that effect. But walk a little farther, and you'll find something else. Relief, the kind that comes when you stop chasing illusions, when you stop handing your soul to people holding paper hands. From this moment on, don't mourn the absence of true friendship. Build the kind of life where you are your own constant. And anyone who stays after that, they're not your friend. They're your mirror